Hello again. For weeks now, the Korean Peninsula has been on edge amid saber rattling from Pyongyang and Washington. Under the shadow of war, millions of people will cast their vote tomorrow to choose the next president of South Korea. And surprisingly, the top issue for them isn't their war-mongering northern neighbor. According to a survey, voters say their biggest concern is corruption. 27.5% of the voters in the country want a graft-free government. 24.5% say their top priority is economy and jobs. And 18.5% say the biggest issue is national security. And this is not surprising, given that voters are choosing a successor to President Park Geun-hye. Once called the People's Princess, she had a humiliating fall from grace. She was impeached and ejected from office over corruption charges in the month of March this year. Her approval ratings plunged, forcing her party to change its name to distance itself from her. Record-breaking household debts and rising security concerns have also affected the election mood this year. The new favorite to take office is Moon Jae-in. He's a former commando and human rights lawyer, a presidential nominee of the Minju Party of Korea. He favors peaceful reunification of Korea and is seen as America's friend. He's also promised a $9 billion fiscal stimulus to create jobs and promises transparency in his government. Nearly 5 million people have already voted in early polling, and tensions on the Korean Peninsula in the past have tended to lead frightened voters to pick conservative candidates. Will this time be different, is the question we're asking. Jason Yo, journalist of the Korea Herald, is joining us live from Seoul. Jason, my first question, this has been a very turbulent past few weeks for the Korean Peninsula, given the war drums that we heard. What's the mood like as people go to cast their vote tomorrow?
The election is tomorrow, and it is going to start at 6 a.m. local time in South Korea. And currently the front runner is Moon Jae-in, whose popularity is much higher than other candidates. And I think it is very likely that he is going to be the next president. And currently the tension on the Korean Peninsula is not that intense, because as a result of the combined pressure from the U.S. and China against Pyongyang, I think the North Korea has been, lowering their military threat against South Korea and the U.S. Even though there are still harsh rhetoric, but it is quite unlikely that they are going to conduct 6 nuclear tests or another ballistic missile test right now. So the tension is not as high as before. So what is important is that how the next president is going to handle North Korea. So it is what we are focusing on right now.
Issue for voters.
I think the biggest issue in this election is more about referendum against former President Park Geun-hye, who was impeached over corruption charges. So unlike previous elections, I think North Korea and economic issue is not as important as previous elections. So this election is more about the former president has committed serious crimes. So it is time for us to change the government so that hand over the power to the opposition and liberal government.
Tell us more about the frontrunner Moon Jae-in. What is his foreign policy?
Yeah, it is a very good question. He is considered to be engagement with North Korea, and actually I had a chance to interview him last month, and he said that he wants South Korea to take the initiative of the two Korean issues. He criticized the previous two conservative governments for making South Korea what he described as spectator of the South Koreans' own survival. So his basic policy position is to make South Korea play more active role in resolving, its own security and military issues by enhancing cooperation with North Korea. So, but the problem is, I don't think there will be dramatic change right now, because currently North Korea is under the sanction of the United Nations and United States, and there has been what the people describing as unprecedented pressure against North Korea. So I think for the time being, the Moon administration is going to, work in tandem with the international pressure against North Korea. But in the longer term, I guess they are pushing for, more cooperative and more engaging relationship with North Korea.
Jason Yeo, thanks very much, and we'll find out tomorrow how South Korea votes. Appreciate you joining us. And finally on the show, they say you should never miss a chance to dance, not even if you've just lost a presidential election. We're leaving you with Marine Le Pen right after the result came out. She sure is winning this one. Thanks very much for watching.